and he wants to be able to take her back and show her off to all the people that laughed at him when he was at school and said no to when he asked them for dates. And of course, that's the wrong way to approach life. You know, you shouldn't be trying to kind of punish the people you grew up with. And so, unfortunately, he's trying too hard. He's trying to buy into this fantasy, and the day that he snaps out of that will make him happier. But we're sort of watching him before he snaps out of it.
But you don't, like, Stephen Merchant doesn't want to go and give the two fingers to people who slagged him in school. You're not motivated by that.
I'm not, but I think there was probably a part of me when I was younger that was like that. Probably in my early 20s I felt a little bit of that. Maybe that was one of the reasons why I was kind of ambitious or, trying hard to succeed. But yeah, at some point you realise that's no kind of victory at all. Yeah. And that, those people have long since moved on but there are many people I've met, here and in LA who are successful but who are still trying to punish the world, and teach them a lesson, and who are sort of in competition with the world, even though the world's not in competition with them.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a particular masculine trait, but you do see it in people, and particularly in certain men, who boast about how much they earn or the car they drive, and not only do they boast, but they try and put you down for not having those things. And I mean, he's not as bad as that, but there's an element of that competing with life.
It's a serious business, isn't it? Comedy, and to get a successful sitcom is everyone's looking for the formula, aren't they?
Right.
It's
yes.
And you're out there now. This is. Would you say this is your biggest challenge ever?
Well, I suppose that I'm not sort of trying to think of it in those grand ideas. The idea of trying to kind of make a genre-defining or era-defining comedy, that's preposterous. To try and do that would be over-ambitious. The most you can aim for is to just try and do a show that sort of is coherent and makes sense and that has comedy, and in my case I always like there to be a bit of pathos and a bit of humanity and a bit of romance in there as well, and that's the aim. It's not, I've never sort of thought, I must try and top the success of The Office, let's say, because that seems like a fool's errand. To me it's just like to approach each project on its own terms, just try and do the best you can, tell a story that's a little bit different from what you've done before, and so that's the ambition. You sort of scale down the ambitions rather than try and sort of aim for the stars.
Is that to help you with your sanity? Because if because if your ambitions are too big and then they fall short of that, well, then that's disappointment, isn't it?
That's it. But also, sometimes I think people sort of looking in from the outside assume that the thing you're after is more fame or more money or more access to red carpet events, and that's not really the aim for me. The aim is to enjoy doing the work, and the pleasure is in the writing and the creating it, and it's hard work, but that's the fun of it,
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. If you wanted to make a lot of money, there's easier ways of doing it than the time-consuming exhaustion of like making a TV show. So the reason I do it is because I enjoy the nuts and bolts of it.
And the acting as well, because we've seen you in Tooth Fairy about 15 times now in the last count, that's enjoyable, isn't it? Do a bit of fluff like that.
That's a little bit of fun, but that's more like that's like a sort of, I don't know, that's like a little kind of holiday, from your real job. You get to sort of be in a little movie or do a little bit in a TV show, and you do that as a sort of favour to someone, and it's fun, and you get to muck around, and someone picks you up from the hotel, and you get to wear a funny costume, and you don't have any of the responsibility because you're just like, in a bit part, and that's fun, but it's not as satisfying, it's not as nourishing as making the meal yourself,
And what about, because I read it somewhere in an interview with you that there's no, you don't have you don't know what's happening in the next year or two. You don't have projects in the pipeline, which is the familiar expression. And is that true?
No, absolutely. I'm not very good at multitasking. I mean, I've never been able to do it, so I can only really focus on one thing at a time. And unfortunately, in this business, you never quite know what's going to be available to you year to year. So it's quite hard to plan ahead, and so I mean the hope is that I get to do another season of this show, but that may not happen, in which case I'll have to find something else to do.
And what about you and the ladies? What's the story at the moment, or is that too personal a question?
It's not too personal a question. Basically, since I've moved to LA, I get rejected by even more beautiful women. I've been turned down by some absolute stunners over there. And as far as I'm concerned, that's progress. At this point, I'm playing with the house's money. I'm amazed that girl ever went on a date with me. So it's a win-win for me now.
We had a debate yesterday after we spoke to Karl Pilkington. Does Suzanne actually exist? Or is
Yes, she does, yeah.
She does, yeah.
Of course, yeah.
No, because Will, he's a cynical he's the producer, and he said, that's just some sort of contrivance there. He just has made up that character, Suzanne. And I thought, no, that's not Karl. He's real. She's real.
No, absolutely. No, she's real. I mean, I've never quite...
What'd you say?
I never quite
want
understood
photos.
I want photos.
Show us a photo.
Will wants photos. Yeah.
I'm not quite sure if it's his girlfriend or his carer. I've never quite established.
That's very mean, but very funny. Well, listen, tonight on Sky Atlantic HD, 10 o'clock, Hello Ladies, written, directed by and starring Stephen Merchant. Thanks very much, Stephen. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Bye now. Bye.
The Ray Darcy Show on Today FM.